Hey everyone, I'm glad you're here. Tonight I've got some good night stories to help you relax and slow things down. Get comfortable and let them play. If you enjoy listening here, subscribe to the channel. It's free and it really helps. And leave a good night comment so no one feels alone tonight. My sister's wedding is coming up, and I don't think I can bring myself to attend after what I overheard. I am a 29-year-old woman, and my sister Claire is 32. We have always had a complicated relationship. Not explosive, not openly hostile, but tense in a quiet and persistent way. Growing up, Claire was the golden child. She was confident, social, and always knew how to present herself. I was the quieter one, more introverted, more sensitive, and always a little out of step with what my family expected. Despite that, I thought we had improved as adults. We do not talk every day, but we are cordial. We show up for birthdays and holidays. I genuinely believed that whatever rivalry or resentment existed between us had softened with time. Claire got engaged last year to her fiancé Mark. Everyone was thrilled. The wedding is coming up in a few months, and our entire family has been involved in the planning. I was asked to attend, but not to be in the wedding party. That stung a little, but I accepted it without comment. I told myself it was her day, and not everything needs to be a statement. About a month ago, I was at my parents' house helping my mom Susan organize some old photo albums that Claire wanted for a display at the reception. Claire was there earlier in the day, but had left to meet friends. At least, that is what I thought. At one point, I went upstairs to grab my phone charger from my old bedroom. As I was walking down the hallway, I heard Claire's voice coming from the guest room. She was on speakerphone with someone. I was not trying to listen, but then I heard my name. She was talking to one of her bridesmaids, a woman named Lauren. What I heard stopped me cold. Claire was complaining about how stressful the wedding planning had been, and then said she was dreading having me there. She said I always bring the mood down. She said I make everything about myself without even trying. She laughed and said she hopes I do not wear anything weird or start crying the way I used to when we were younger. Lauren laughed too and said something about how at least I was not in the wedding party. Claire responded by saying she only invited me because she would look bad if she did not. She said if it were up to her, she would keep the guest list smaller and not have to worry about me at all. I stood there frozen. I felt like I was 16 again, listening to her talk about me like I was an embarrassment she had to manage. I did not confront her. I did not announce myself. I quietly went back downstairs and told my mom I was feeling sick and needed to leave. Claire texted me later that night, asking if everything was okay. I did not respond. I needed time to process what I had heard. Over the next few days, I replayed it over and over in my head. It was not just the words. It was how casually she said them. Like this was how she has always seen me. I eventually told my dad Robert what happened. He was upset and said Claire was wrong. But he also said weddings are stressful and people vent. My mom said Claire probably did not mean it, and that siblings say things they do not really feel. That hurt in a different way. It felt like my pain was being minimized to keep the peace. I decided to talk to Claire directly. I called her and told her I overheard what she said. There was a long pause. Then she got defensive. She said I should not have been listening. She said she was just blowing off steam. She said I was proving her point by making this a big deal right before her wedding. I asked her if she actually believed the things she said. She avoided the question and said this was not the time to dig up old insecurities. She said she wants a drama-free wedding and asked me to be supportive for once. That conversation broke something in me. I realized that she was not sorry for what she said. She was annoyed that I heard it. I left the call feeling small and unwanted. After a lot of thought, I told her I would not be attending the wedding. I told her I did not feel comfortable celebrating someone who openly resents my presence. I said I loved her, but I needed to protect myself. All hell broke loose. My parents are furious. They say I am embarrassing the family and punishing Claire over a private conversation. Some relatives have reached out telling me to be the bigger person. Others have stayed silent. I am not trying to ruin her wedding. I am not asking her to apologize publicly. I am simply choosing not to put myself in a room where I know I am not wanted. At the same time, I feel guilty for causing a rift and worried that I will be blamed forever for missing this milestone. I do not know if refusing to attend makes me cruel or if attending would mean betraying myself. I am exhausted from being told to swallow my feelings for the sake of harmony. I just want to know if I am wrong for finally stepping back. Update. My sister's wedding is coming up and I don't think I can bring myself to attend after what I overheard. It has been a few weeks since I made the decision not to attend the wedding, and the fallout has been heavier than I expected. I thought the initial anger would burn off and people would settle into quiet disappointment. Instead, the pressure intensified. Claire tried calling me again a few days after I told her I was not coming. I let it go to voicemail at first because I did not trust myself to stay calm. She left a message saying she was hurt and confused, and that she could not believe I would do this to her over something taken out of context. She said I was putting my feelings above the entire family, and that this would change how people see me forever. I eventually called her back. I told her I was not trying to punish her or make a statement. I told her that hearing her talk about me that way cracked something I did not realize was already fragile. I told her that attending her wedding would feel dishonest, like smiling through something that quietly told me I was unwanted. She got frustrated and said I was twisting her words. She said everyone vents and that I was never meant to hear it. She said if I really loved her, I would show up and support her instead of holding on to something said in private. When I asked her again if she actually believed what she said about me, she said it did not matter and that I was missing the point. That was when I stopped trying to explain myself. I realized I had been asking for acknowledgement and she was only focused on damage control. The conversation ended without resolution. My parents have not let this go. My mom keeps calling and saying this is breaking her heart and that she dreamed of having both her daughters together on this day. My dad is quieter but disappointed. He keeps saying that families move past hurt feelings and that this is bigger than me. What they do not seem to understand is that this has never felt small to me. It feels like confirmation of something I have sensed my whole life but hoped was no longer true. That I am tolerated, not valued. That I am an obligation, not a choice. Extended family has gotten involved in ways I did not ask for. An aunt messaged me saying I should not let jealousy ruin my sister's happiness. A cousin told me I would regret this when it is too late to fix it. Nobody has asked how it felt to hear those words. They just keep telling me to be quiet and compliant. I have spent a lot of nights second guessing myself, wondering if I am being dramatic, wondering if I should just go, sit in the back, smile for pictures, and disappear again afterward. But every time I imagine that, my chest tightens. I picture myself watching her walk down the aisle, knowing she did not want me there, and I feel foolish for pretending otherwise. I started seeing a therapist again because I realized this was bringing up more than just one incident. We talked about boundaries and how refusing to attend is not the same as cutting someone off. We talked about how choosing not to participate in something that causes emotional harm is not an act of cruelty. A few days ago, Claire sent a final message. She said if I do not come, she does not know how our relationship recovers from this. I read it several times before replying. I told her I was sorry she felt that way, but that our relationship was already hurt long before this wedding. I told her I needed space and would reach out when I was ready. The wedding is still weeks away. I do not know what things will look like after it happens. I know there will be photos without me and stories told where my absence becomes part of the narrative. I am bracing myself for that. What I do know is that for the first time, I am choosing not to abandon myself to make everyone else comfortable. That choice has been painful and lonely, but it has also been grounding. I am no longer pretending that everything is fine just to keep the peace. Maybe one day, Claire and I will talk honestly about what was said and why it hurt. Maybe we will not. Right now, All I can do is stand by the boundary I set and accept whatever comes next. Update. My sister's wedding is coming up, and I don't think I can bring myself to attend after what I overheard. The wedding has come and gone, and this will be my final update because there is nothing left unresolved, even if some feelings still hurt. I did not attend. The week leading up to the wedding was tense and quiet. My parents stopped pushing as hard, but the disappointment was obvious. My mom sent a message the night before saying she wished I would reconsider and that there was still time. I did not reply. I knew if I engaged, I would talk myself into going out of guilt instead of honesty. On the day of the wedding, I stayed home. I took the day off work, turned my phone on silent, and spent the morning doing things that grounded me. I went for a long walk. I cooked myself a proper meal. I tried to treat it like any other day instead of the emotional landmine it was. It was still hard. I would be lying if I said I did not cry at all. Around the time the ceremony would have been starting, I got a text from my dad saying he loved me. That was it. No guilt, no pressure. Just that. I appreciated it more than he probably knows. Later that night, I made the mistake of checking social media. There were photos everywhere. Claire in her dress, big smiles, family group shots. The absence of me was noticeable, at least to me. I felt a wave of sadness, but also something else I did not expect. Relief. I did not feel like I had abandoned myself. I did not feel fake. I felt sad, but intact. A few days later, Claire reached out. The message was short. She said the wedding was beautiful and that she wished things were different between us. She said she was still hurt that I did not come, but that she did not want this to be the end of our relationship. I took my time before responding. When I did, I told her I was glad her wedding went well and that I genuinely hoped she was happy. I also told her that what I overheard changed how safe I felt in our relationship and that pretending otherwise for one day would not have fixed that. I said I am open to talking in the future, but only if we can be honest without dismissing each other. She replied that she needs time. I understand that. I need time too. My relationship with my parents is strained but not broken. My mom is still emotional about it. My dad has been quieter but kinder. Extended family has mostly moved on, though I know my absence will always be a footnote in this story. Looking back, I know some people will always think I overreacted. Others will say I should have swallowed it for the sake of family. But living through this showed me something important. Peace bought by self-erasure is not peace. It is just delayed resentment. I did not skip the wedding to punish my sister. I skipped it because I did not want to stand in a room celebrating someone who openly said they only wanted me there out of obligation. That choice hurt, but it also protected something in me that has been bruised for a long time. I do not know what my relationship with Claire will look like in the future. Maybe distance will soften things. Maybe it will make them clearer. Either way, I no longer feel ashamed of choosing myself. Stories number 2. My girlfriend changed after learning her ex is getting married. I am a 35-year-old man and I have been with my girlfriend for a little over 2 years. Until recently, I would have told anyone who asked that our relationship was solid. Not perfect, but steady. We live together in a rented house in North Carolina. We split bills. We talk about the future in a casual way, like it is something we are both walking toward at the same pace. That feeling shifted about a month ago, and I am still trying to understand what it means. My girlfriend is 32, and she has an ex she dated for almost 6 years before me. I knew about him from the beginning. She never hid that relationship or pretended it was insignificant. They broke up a few years before we met, and she always described it as something that ran its course. No big betrayal, no dramatic ending, just two people who wanted different things at different times. I accepted that because everyone has a past. About a month ago, she found out through social media that her ex is getting married. She did not even seek it out. A mutual friend posted engagement photos and it popped up on her feed. I was sitting on the couch next to her when she saw it. I noticed her body tense immediately. She stared at her phone longer than usual and then put it face down on the table like it burned her. At first, I thought she was just surprised. That felt normal. What I did not expect was how deep it seemed to go. That night, she barely talked. She went to bed early and turned away from me. The next morning, she said she did not sleep well and had a headache. Over the next few days, her mood stayed low. She was quiet, distracted. She cried in the shower more than once, thinking I could not hear. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she was fine. When I pushed gently, she admitted that seeing her ex move on brought up feelings she thought were gone. She said it made her reflect on her life and where she thought she would be by now. I tried to be understanding. I told her it made sense and that feelings do not follow logic. I also told her I was there if she wanted to talk. What bothered me was that talking never really happened. She would start and then stop. She would say she felt silly being upset and shut down. Meanwhile, the distance between us grew. She stopped initiating affection. She spent more time scrolling on her phone. I caught her looking at old photos one night, and she quickly locked her screen when she realized I saw. I asked her directly if she still had feelings for her ex. She hesitated before answering, and that hesitation has been echoing in my head ever since. She said she does not want to be with him, and that she loves me, but that part of her feels like she lost something she cannot get back. She said seeing him get married made it feel final in a way she was not prepared for. I tried not to take that personally, but it is hard not to. I am standing right here, loving her and planning a future, and she is grieving someone else's next chapter. I do not want to be jealous of a ghost, but I also do not want to pretend this does not hurt. I asked her if she wished she was the one marrying him. She said no, but then added that she sometimes wonders what her life would look like if things had been different. That answer landed wrong, even if she did not mean it to. Things got more complicated when she admitted she messaged a mutual friend asking about the wedding details. Not him directly, but close enough that it made me uncomfortable. I told her that crossed a boundary for me. She apologized and said she was just curious and trying to process. I believe her, but it still made me feel like I am competing with a memory that suddenly feels very alive. We had a longer conversation last weekend that left me conflicted. She said she feels guilty because she does not want to hurt me and she hates that this is affecting us. She said she feels like she should be over it and that something must be wrong with her. I told her nothing is wrong with her, but that I need honesty even when it is messy. I asked her if she is truly ready to be building a future with me right now. She said she thinks so, but she needs time to sort out her emotions. That word time scares me. I do not know what it means in this context. I do not know if it means a few weeks of sadness or a deeper realization that she is not as emotionally available as I thought. I am trying to be patient without becoming invisible. I am trying to be supportive without becoming a placeholder. I talked to my friend Kevin about it, and he said that everyone reacts weirdly when an ex hits a big milestone, and that it does not necessarily mean unresolved love. He said it could just be grief for a version of life that is officially gone. That made sense intellectually. Emotionally, I am still struggling. I also talked to my coworker Laura, who said that if her partner seemed this affected by an ex, she would take it as a red flag. That did not help my anxiety. The hardest part is the change in how she looks at me sometimes. Not cold, just distant, like she is somewhere else even when she is sitting next to me. I miss the ease we had before this. I miss feeling like I was enough without question. I worry that if I push too hard, I will drive her away, and if I stay silent, I will slowly disappear from the relationship anyway. I do not want to punish her for having feelings. I also do not want to ignore my own. I am trying to figure out whether this is a temporary emotional storm or a sign that we are not as aligned as I believed. I love her, and that makes this harder because walking away would hurt, and staying without clarity might hurt even more. Update. My girlfriend changed after learning her ex is getting married. I did not expect to be back so soon, but things have continued to move whether I felt ready or not. After I posted, I sat with everything for a few days and realized that my anxiety was starting to leak out in small ways even when I tried to hide it. Olivia could feel it, and that was not helping either of us. The turning point came one night when she asked if we could talk without distractions. No phones, no TV, just us. That already felt heavy, but also necessary. She told me she had been thinking a lot about why the news about Thomas hit her so hard and that she finally understood something she had been avoiding. She said it was not about wanting him back, it was about mourning a version of herself she thought she would be by now. She explained that when she was with him, she always assumed marriage would happen eventually. Not necessarily with him specifically, but in that timeline. She thought by her early 30s she would be married, or at least clearly on that path. Seeing him get married forced her to confront the gap between what she imagined for herself and where she actually is. She said that gap made her feel like she failed somehow, even though she knows logically that life does not work on schedules. Hearing that helped, but it did not erase everything. I told her honestly that watching her shut down and pull away made me feel like I was losing her to something I could not compete with. I told her that the hesitation when I asked if she still had feelings for him really hurt, and that it planted doubts I could not just turn off. She listened without interrupting, which I appreciated more than she probably knows. She admitted that she hesitated because she was scared of how the answer would sound. She said there is a difference between lingering feelings and unresolved emotions, and she had been afraid I would not hear that difference. She said she does not want to be with him and does not want the life he is about to have. She said what she wants is clarity and security, and to feel like she is moving forward instead of standing still. We talked about boundaries more clearly this time. She agreed that asking Hannah about the wedding was not helpful and said she has muted anything related to Thomas on social media. She showed me without me asking. That mattered. Not because I needed proof, but because it showed intention. She also admitted that she had been comparing herself to him in unhealthy ways, and that she hated how much power that comparison had over her mood. I told her I need to feel chosen, not just tolerated, while she sorts herself out. That was hard to say, because it felt vulnerable and selfish, but it was the truth. She cried and said she never meant to make me feel like a placeholder. She said she loves me, and that this scare made her realize she has been taking the stability of our relationship for granted, because she assumed I would always be there. We decided to take a few concrete steps, instead of just talking in circles. One of them was couples counseling. Not because we are on the brink of breaking up, but because neither of us wants to keep guessing what the other is thinking. We had our first session last week with a therapist named Rebecca, and it was uncomfortable in the way that feels productive. Olivia talked about her fear of falling behind in life. I talked about my fear of being emotionally second place. Hearing those things reflected back to us without judgment helped more than I expected. Since then, I have noticed small changes. She reaches for me again. She laughs more easily. She still has moments where she seems distant, but now she names them instead of disappearing into them. She told me a few days ago that she feels embarrassed by how much the engagement shook her, and that she is working on separating her self-worth from other people's milestones. I am still cautious. I would be lying if I said everything feels fixed. Trust does not snap back instantly once it is shaken. But I also feel more included in her inner world than I did a few weeks ago, and that makes a difference. I feel like we are facing the discomfort together instead of standing on opposite sides of it. Kevin checked in on me, and I told him things were improving but still fragile. Laura told me to keep my eyes open and not ignore my instincts. Both pieces of advice feel relevant. I am trying to balance patience with self-respect, which is harder than it sounds when you love someone. Right now, I do not feel like I'm competing with a ghost as much as I did before. I feel like I am walking next to someone who stumbled and is trying to regain her footing. I do not know yet if this will make us stronger or simply show us where the cracks really are. I do know that pretending nothing happened would have been worse. Final update. My girlfriend changed after learning her ex is getting married. I waited longer to write this because I wanted to be sure I was not just reacting to a temporary upswing or a bad day. Enough time has passed now that things feel clearer even if they are not perfect. What I can say is that this experience changed both of us in ways I did not expect. Olivia stayed consistent with counseling, and so did I. Couple sessions became less about the ex and more about us, about how we communicate when fear shows up, about how easily we both slip into silence instead of saying the thing that might be uncomfortable but necessary. Rebecca helped us see that the engagement news was more like a trigger than a cause. It exposed things that were already quietly sitting under the surface. One night a few weeks ago, Olivia told me something that finally made everything click. She said that when she saw Thomas getting married, it forced her to admit that she had been drifting through her 30s instead of actively choosing a direction. She said our relationship was safe and loving and real, but she had been coasting in it instead of investing fully because part of her was scared to want things out loud. Marriage, kids, long-term plans. She said it felt easier to stay vague than to risk wanting something and not getting it. Hearing that was painful, but also grounding. It was no longer about him. It was about her relationship with commitment and fear. I told her that loving her while she stayed half-guarded was starting to make me feel small, even though she never intended that. I told her I need a partner who is choosing me with intention, not someone standing next to me while still figuring out if they want the same road. That conversation was the hardest one we have had. There were tears on both sides and long pauses where neither of us knew what to say next. At one point she asked me if I thought she wasted my time. I told her no, but that continuing without clarity would eventually turn into that. I told her I love her, but I love myself too, and I cannot keep living in a holding pattern. After that, we decided to take a short but real step back. Not a breakup, not moving out, just space with purpose. Separate schedules for a couple of weeks, fewer default routines, time to think without leaning on each other for comfort. It was scary, but also strangely clarifying. During that time, Olivia did a lot of reflection. She journaled. She talked more in therapy. She stopped avoiding questions about the future and actually sat with them. I did the same. I asked myself what I would do if nothing changed. If I could accept a partner who needed more time indefinitely. The honest answer was no. When we came back together to talk, it felt different. Calmer, more grounded. Olivia told me she is done measuring her life against anyone else's timeline. She said she does not want to live reacting to milestones she sees online. She said she wants to build something intentionally, even if it scares her. She told me clearly that she wants a future with me, and that she understands now that wanting something means risking disappointment, but not wanting anything means living numb. I told her that hearing that mattered, but that words alone would not rebuild what cracked. She agreed. Since then, her actions have matched what she said. She initiates conversations about the future instead of deflecting them. She talks about plans in a concrete way. She checks in emotionally instead of withdrawing. I feel seen again in a way I had not realized I was missing. I am not pretending everything is magically resolved. That moment shook my trust, and it will take time for that to fully settle. But I no longer feel like I am competing with the past or standing in someone else's shadow. I feel like I am standing across from a partner who finally turned toward me instead of inward. Kevin says I look lighter. Laura says she is glad I did not ignore my instincts. Both are right in different ways. What I learned is that love does not mean absorbing uncertainty forever. It means addressing it before it turns into quiet resentment. Stories number 3. My sister-in-law ignored the daycare rules and now everyone is mad at me. I am a 29-year-old woman named Lauren, and I work as an assistant manager at a small daycare in Ohio called Little Steps. I got this job 3 years ago after leaving retail because I wanted something calmer and more meaningful. My brother Jason is 33, and he is married to a woman named Melissa, who is 31. They have one child together, my niece, who is 4 years old, and her name is Avery. I love Avery more than I can explain, and I usually babysit her at least once a week for free because I enjoy spending time with her and I want to help my family. When I started working at Little Steps, I made it very clear to Jason and Melissa that I could not bring Avery into the daycare unless she was officially enrolled and unless they followed all the same rules as every other parent. Our daycare has strict policies because of licensing and safety reasons. Kids have to be registered, vaccinated unless they have a medical exemption, and parents have to follow drop-off and pick-up times exactly. No exceptions, even for family. At first, Jason and Melissa said they understood. They never tried to take advantage of my job until last month. Melissa recently started a new job at a salon, and her schedule changes every week. Jason works construction and sometimes leaves very early in the morning. Avery normally goes to a private daycare closer to their house, but that daycare closes at 5 p.m. sharp. One Friday, Melissa called me crying at 4:30 p.m., saying she was stuck with a client who was running late and she would not make it in time to pick Avery up. She asked if I could go get Avery and keep her with me at Little Steps until she got off work. I told her I could not do that because Avery was not enrolled at my daycare and it would break the rules. I offered to go get Avery and bring her to my apartment instead, but Melissa said she did not want Avery at my place because she had work clothes all over my couch from a project I was doing. She said it would be easier if I just brought Avery to work with me because I was already there. I said no again and reminded her that I could get fired and that the daycare could get in serious trouble. Melissa got really quiet and then said she guessed she would just have to quit her job because nobody ever helped her. That made me feel terrible, but I still did not change my answer. In the end, Jason left his job early and picked Avery up, and he lost half a day of pay. After that, things were tense, but not openly hostile. 2 weeks later, Melissa texted me saying she had enrolled Avery at Little Steps. I was surprised because she never mentioned it before. I checked our system at work and saw that Avery was not fully enrolled. Melissa had filled out some forms online, but she never submitted Avery's vaccination records, and she never paid the registration fee. That meant Avery was not allowed to attend yet. The next Monday, I came into work and saw Melissa's car in the parking lot. I felt a knot in my stomach right away. She came in holding Avery's hand and smiled like everything was normal. She said, "I'm so glad you work here because this is going to make things so much easier for me." I asked her if she finished Avery's enrollment, and she said she was pretty sure she did most of it and that I could just handle the rest since I worked there. I told her I could not do that. I explained that Avery was not in the system as fully enrolled and that without the vaccine records and payment, we could not legally take her. Melissa's face changed immediately. She said she was already late for work and that I needed to stop being dramatic. I told her again that I could not let Avery stay. I offered to watch Avery at my apartment after my shift or help her find another solution for the day, but she said she did not have time for that and that I was making her life harder on purpose. Melissa then tried to leave Avery in the lobby and walk out. I had to step in front of her and say that if she left Avery, I would have to call child services because that would be considered abandonment at a non-approved location. That finally made her stop. She started crying and said I was a horrible aunt and that any other person would help family instead of hiding behind rules. Other parents were staring at us and I felt sick to my stomach, but I still did not back down. In the end, Melissa took Avery back with her and called Jason, who again had to leave work early. That night, Jason called me and yelled at me. He said I embarrassed his wife and made her feel like a bad mother. He said family is supposed to help each other no matter what. I told him that I was trying to help, but not at the cost of my job or the safety rules of the daycare. He said I cared more about my boss than my own niece. After that, Melissa stopped talking to me completely. She blocked me on social media and would not answer my texts. Jason still talks to me, but only when he has to. My parents, Linda and Robert, found out about everything because Melissa told them her version of the story. She said I refused to help her, that I humiliated her at the daycare, and that I threatened to call child services just to scare her. My mom called me crying and asked why I hated Melissa so much. My dad said he did not raise me to turn my back on family. I tried to explain the real story to them, but they kept saying that sometimes you bend the rules for family. I asked them if they would pay my bills if I lost my job, or if they would take responsibility if the daycare got fined or shut down. They did not answer that. They just said I should apologize to keep the peace. The worst part is that I barely get to see Avery now. Before all of this, she used to run into my arms when she saw me. Now I only see her at big family gatherings, and Melissa makes sure Avery is always busy with something else. It breaks my heart because none of this is Avery's fault. A few days ago, Jason asked if I would apologize to Melissa so things could go back to normal. I said I was sorry that she felt hurt, but I was not sorry for following the rules and protecting my job. Jason said that was not a real apology and that I was being stubborn. He said Melissa will never forgive me unless I admit I was wrong. I honestly do not think I was wrong. I think Melissa expected special treatment because we are family, and when she did not get it, she took it personally. I understand that being a working mom is hard and that schedules are stressful, but that does not mean rules suddenly do not matter. Those rules exist to keep kids safe, including Avery. Now every family dinner is awkward. My mom gives me sad looks. My dad barely talks to me. Jason acts like I betrayed him. Melissa pretends I do not exist. I feel like I am being punished for doing the responsible thing. At the same time, part of me wonders if I should have just bent the rules once to keep the peace, even if it was risky. I miss my niece. I miss my brother. I miss how things used to be. But I also know that if something had gone wrong that day at the daycare, it would have been my fault in everyone's eyes. I would have lost my job and probably still lost my family too. I feel stuck between doing what is right and being what my family wants me to be. I do not know how to fix this without lying or taking the blame for something I do not believe I did wrong. All I ever wanted was to help my family while still respecting my job and the rules that come with it. Instead, I feel like I lost everyone over something that should have been simple. Update: my sister-in-law ignored the daycare rules, and now everyone is mad at me. A lot has happened since everything blew up, and I honestly did not expect things to get this messy. After my last family dinner where everyone barely spoke to me, I went home and cried harder than I have in years. I kept thinking about Avery and how confused she must be. She is 4 and does not understand adult drama. She just knows that her aunt suddenly does not come around anymore. A few days later, I got called into my boss Karen's office at work. My stomach dropped because I was scared Melissa might have complained about me. Karen asked me if there had been any issues with a parent recently, and I told her the truth about what happened with Melissa trying to drop Avery off without finishing enrollment. Karen sighed and said Melissa had called the daycare and accused me of targeting her because she is family and that I was trying to get her in trouble. Karen said she did not believe her because the cameras and logs showed that I followed policy, but she warned me that mixing family and work can get dangerous fast. She told me I handled it correctly, but that she needed me to be extra careful from now on. That same night, my mom Linda called me again. She said Melissa had been crying to her all day and saying she felt judged as a mother. My mom asked me why I could not just apologize and admit I went too far. I finally snapped and told my mom that if she kept siding with Melissa without listening to me, she was going to lose me too. That made her quiet. She said she did not want to lose anyone and that she just wanted peace in the family. I told her peace that is built on one person being blamed for everything is not real peace. A week later, Jason showed up at my apartment without calling first. He looked exhausted. He said things at home were not good. He said Melissa was angry all the time, mostly at him, because she felt like everyone was judging her. He admitted that she still had not finished Avery's enrollment at Little Steps and that she was struggling to find stable childcare because her work schedule kept changing. I asked him why he was telling me this. He said he wanted me to talk to Melissa and smooth things over so maybe she would be willing to fix things. I told him I would talk to her, but I was not going to lie or say I was wrong. He agreed, but I could tell he was worried. I texted Melissa and asked if we could talk just the two of us. She did not reply for 2 days. When she finally did, she just said fine and gave me a time to meet her at a coffee shop. When I walked in and saw her sitting there, I almost cried because it felt so strange to see someone who used to be part of my life now looking at me like a stranger. She did not smile. She just said, "Say what you need to say." I told her I was sorry that she felt hurt and embarrassed that day, but I also told her that I did not do it to hurt her. I explained again how serious the rules are and that I could lose my job and maybe my career if I broke them. I told her I loved Avery and I would never do anything to put her at risk. Melissa said she felt like I cared more about my coworkers and my boss than about her. She said she already feels judged as a working mom and that what happened made her feel like everyone thinks she is irresponsible. I told her that is not true and that needing help does not make her a bad mom, but refusing to follow rules and expecting special treatment is not fair either. She started crying and said she feels like she is failing at everything. She said her new job is harder than she expected and that she feels like she is always running late and disappointing someone. For the first time, I saw her not as my enemy, but as someone who is overwhelmed and scared. I told her I wanted to help her, but in ways that would not get me fired or put kids in danger. I offered to babysit Avery more often on my days off and even some evenings if she needed it. I also offered to help her finish the daycare paperwork if she still wanted Avery at little steps, but only if she followed every rule like everyone else. Melissa did not answer right away. She just stared at the table. Then she said she felt stupid for assuming I would just handle it for her. She admitted she did not fully read the enrollment rules and thought having me there meant things would be easier. She said she was angry because she felt exposed in front of other parents. She did not say sorry, but she said she understood why I did what I did. That was more than I expected. Things did not magically get better after that, but they slowly changed. Melissa started replying to my texts again, mostly about Avery. She let me come over one afternoon to play with her. When Avery saw me, she screamed my name and jumped into my arms like nothing had ever been wrong. I cried in front of everyone and did not even care. Jason seemed lighter after that. He told me he was glad we talked because things at home were a little calmer. My parents also softened once they saw that I was back in Avery's life. My mom even admitted that maybe she judged too fast. However, there is still tension. Melissa is polite to me now, but not warm. We are not close like we used to be. She still has not apologized to me for lying to my parents or trying to leave Avery at the daycare. Jason still thinks I should have just bent the rules that one time, but he does not yell about it anymore. The hardest part is that I know this could all explode again if something else goes wrong with childcare or work schedules. I live with this constant fear that one bad day could bring us right back to where we started. I am trying to accept that sometimes doing the right thing costs you comfort and closeness, at least for a while. I still believe I did what I had to do. I protected my job, the daycare, and honestly, even Avery, even if she is too young to understand that. I hope one day Melissa and I can actually talk about this without bitterness. I hope my family stops seeing me as the one who chose rules over family. And more than anything, I hope Avery never feels like she was the reason for any of this, because she is the only innocent one in this whole mess. Final update. My sister-in-law ignored the daycare rules, and now everyone is mad at me. It has been several months since everything first happened, and I can finally say that my life feels calmer again, even if it is not perfect. After I started seeing Avery again, and things were less icy, I focused on just being consistent and kind without pushing too hard. I showed up when Melissa asked me to watch Avery. I stopped bringing up the daycare situation unless she did. I let things breathe. One afternoon, Melissa called me in a panic. Her regular daycare had closed early because of a water issue and she had no backup. She asked if I could take Avery for the night. I said yes without hesitation and picked her up. When Melissa came to get her later, she looked exhausted. She thanked me. And then, out of nowhere, she started crying. She said she hated how things turned out between us and that she missed how close we used to be. She admitted she felt ashamed of how she handled the daycare situation and how she talked about me to my parents. She finally said she was sorry. Not in a dramatic way, just quiet and real. She said she was wrong to expect special treatment and wrong to paint me as the villain. I told her I was sorry too, not for following the rules, but for how cold everything became after that day. We both cried and hugged, and it felt like something heavy finally lifted. A week later, Melissa and Jason invited me over for dinner. My parents were there too. It was awkward at first, but then Melissa spoke up and told everyone that she had been unfair to me. She said I did not try to hurt her and that she made things worse by lying and blaming me. My mom cried and apologized to me. My dad said he should have listened to me more instead of assuming I was wrong. Jason admitted he was angry because he was stressed and tired and wanted someone else to fix things for him. He said he should have stood up for me more instead of letting things turn into a family war. Hearing all of that felt strange, but also healing, like old wounds finally being cleaned out. Since then, things have slowly gone back to something close to normal. Melissa finished Avery's enrollment at a different daycare that fits her schedule better. She did not choose my daycare, and honestly, that is probably healthier for everyone. I still babysit Avery a lot, and she sleeps over at my place sometimes. She tells everyone that my apartment is her second house. Melissa and I are not best friends like we used to be, but we are kind to each other and we trust each other again. Sometimes we even laugh about how ridiculous everything got. Jason is more present with his family now and less quick to dump problems on other people. At work, everything is steady. My boss told me she was proud of how I handled the whole situation and how I never let it affect my job. That meant more to me than I expected. Looking back, I still believe I did the right thing that day. It cost me peace for a while, but it also forced everyone to face their own behavior. If I had bent the rules, maybe things would have stayed quiet, but I think resentment would have grown anyway. I learned that doing the right thing does not always look kind in the moment, but it can lead to something healthier in the long run. I also learned that family can hurt you deeply, even when they do not mean to. Now when Avery runs into my arms and tells me she loves me, I know it was worth holding my ground. Not because I won, but because I stayed honest with myself. And somehow, after all that mess, my family and I found our way back to each other. A little bruised, but still together. Stories number 4. My family thinks I forgave my husband out of love, but the truth is much colder. Everyone around me tells the same version of my story. They say I'm strong. They say I'm forgiving. They say I loved my husband enough to move past what he did. I nod when they say it because correcting them would take more energy than I have. The truth is, I didn't forgive my husband because I loved him. I forgave him because I didn't. My husband's name is Mark. We've been married for 11 years. From the outside, our life looks stable. Suburban house in Pennsylvania. 2 cars. Joint savings. No kids by choice. People assume that means freedom and happiness. For a long time, I thought so too. Mark cheated on me 3 years ago. I didn't find out in a dramatic way. No lipstick on a collar. No accidental text. I found out because his phone buzzed while he was in the shower and the message preview popped up. It said I missed last night already. I remember staring at that screen and feeling nothing at first. No panic. No rage. Just a strange emptiness, like something quietly confirmed what I already knew but hadn't admitted. The woman's name was Allison. A coworker. Married too. It had been going on for almost a year. When I confronted Mark, he didn't deny it. He cried. He apologized. He said it meant nothing. He said he was lonely. He said he made a mistake. He said all the things people say when they get caught. I listened calmly. Too calmly. That scared him more than yelling would have. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't tell him to leave. I just asked him questions. Practical ones. How long? How often? Did anyone else know? He kept saying he loved me, that he wanted to fix it, that he would do anything. I remember thinking, do you really think love is the deciding factor here? I didn't kick him out because I wasn't devastated. I wasn't heartbroken. I was tired. Tired in a way that goes beyond exhaustion. Tired of carrying emotional weight alone. Tired of asking for effort. Tired of being the responsible one. Tired of shrinking myself to keep the peace. Mark wasn't a monster. That's the complicated part. He never hit me, never screamed at me, never openly disrespected me. He was just absent in 1,000 quiet ways. He forgot anniversaries. He dismissed my concerns as overthinking. He treated our marriage like a background app, running quietly, while he focused on everything else. By the time he cheated, I had already checked out emotionally. I just hadn't admitted it yet. We went to therapy because that's what you're supposed to do. Friends applauded me for trying. His mother, Linda, told me how proud she was of me for being such a forgiving wife. My own parents said marriage is about commitment, not feelings. No one asked me if I still wanted him. They just assumed I did. In therapy, Mark cried a lot. He talked about his guilt, his shame, his fear of losing me. I listened politely. When it was my turn, I talked about trust and communication and rebuilding. I said all the right words. What I didn't say was that the affair didn't break my heart. It confirmed that it was already broken. I stayed because leaving would have been harder at the time. Financially, logistically, emotionally in a different way. Divorce would have meant upheaval, questions, judgments, pity. Forgiveness was quieter, easier. It let everything stay in place. Mark became the perfect husband after that. Attentive, present, affectionate. He planned dates. He checked in. He apologized constantly. He told everyone how grateful he was that I gave him another chance. People told me how lucky I was that he stepped up. I felt nothing. It's strange how love doesn't always leave in a dramatic exit. Sometimes it just fades quietly while no one is looking. I realized about a year after the affair that I didn't miss him when he wasn't around. I didn't feel excited when he came home. His touch felt neutral, not repulsive, not comforting, just empty. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger would have meant there was still something there to protect. Mark thinks we survived infidelity. He tells people our marriage is stronger now. He believes the story everyone else believes. I let him, because the alternative would mean admitting that I stayed out of convenience and fear, not devotion. That I forgave him, because it cost me less than leaving. That love had nothing to do with it. Sometimes I wonder if that makes me cruel, letting him believe in a redemption arc that doesn't really exist. Letting him think he won me back. Other times, I think it's just honest. We're both getting something out of this arrangement. He gets stability and forgiveness. I get time and control over when and how my life changes. I'm not planning to leave tomorrow or next month, but I know I won't be here forever. I'm slowly rebuilding myself in quiet ways. Saving money. Reconnecting with parts of me that disappeared. Imagining a future that doesn't include him. When people tell me how inspiring it is that I forgave my husband because I loved him so much, I smile and thank them. They don't need to know that love had nothing to do with it. Update. My family thinks I forgave my husband out of love, but the truth is much colder. I didn't expect to come back to this, but a lot has shifted in ways I couldn't ignore anymore, and writing it out feels like the only way to make sense of it. After I posted, I sat with my own words longer than I thought I would. Seeing everything laid out made it impossible to pretend I was just numb or coasting. I wasn't confused. I was done, just quietly. What finally pushed things forward was something small and stupid. Mark forgot my birthday. Again, not in a dramatic way. No fight, no big moment. He realized it the next morning when he saw the calendar reminder he had apparently set and ignored. He panicked. He apologized over and over. He booked a last-minute dinner. He bought flowers that were still wrapped in plastic when he handed them to me. I thanked him and meant it in the same way you thank a coworker for covering a shift. Polite, neutral, empty. That night, while we were sitting at dinner with forced smiles and clinking glasses, he said something about how grateful he was that we made it through everything. He said he knows he almost lost me and that it scares him to think about what his life would look like without me. I looked at him and realized I wasn't scared at all. That's when it hit me fully. I wasn't staying because I didn't want to hurt him. I was staying because I hadn't chosen myself yet. A week later, I asked him to sit down and talk. He immediately tensed up, like his body still remembers the moment 3 years ago when everything changed. I told him this wasn't about the affair. That chapter was already closed. This was about us now. I told him I didn't feel connected to him anymore, that forgiveness didn't equal restoration, that I didn't hate him, but I didn't love him either. I told him I felt like we were roommates, performing a marriage everyone else applauded. He cried, not loudly, quietly. He said he thought we were happy. He said he tried so hard to be better. He asked if there was someone else. I told him no, there wasn't, and that somehow made it worse for him. He asked if therapy could help again, if we could try harder, if we could start fresh. I told him starting fresh only works when there's something left to build on. He asked me when I stopped loving him. I told him I didn't know the exact day, just that it happened long before the affair, and the affair just removed the last excuse I had to ignore it. That conversation didn't end with yelling. It ended with silence and him sleeping on the couch without being asked. Over the next few weeks, we talked more honestly than we had in years. Not kinder, just more honest. He admitted he assumed forgiveness meant closure, that because I stayed, he thought we were healed. He said he never considered that I might stay for reasons that had nothing to do with him. I told him the truth. That leaving back then felt overwhelming. That staying felt easier. That I didn't have the energy to grieve a marriage and rebuild my life at the same time. He asked if I was planning to leave now. I said yes. Not immediately. But yes, that broke something in him, but it also shifted the dynamic. He stopped performing. I stopped pretending. We started talking logistics instead of emotions, finances, timelines, what separation would look like, what we'd tell people. That part surprised me the most. How calm I felt once the truth was out. A few days ago, I told my parents. They were shocked, confused. My mother asked what changed. I told her nothing changed. I just stopped lying to myself. Mark's mother called me crying. She said she thought we were past this. She asked what more Mark could possibly do. I didn't answer because there isn't an action that fixes absence. Right now, we're still living in the same house, but in separate spaces. It's strange, but not painful. If anything, it feels honest for the first time in years. I don't know what Mark tells people yet. I'm sure some version of forgiveness and love will still be part of the story. I'm okay with that. I don't need to correct it anymore. I don't feel guilty the way I thought I would. I don't feel cruel. I feel clear. Forgiving him didn't make me noble. Staying didn't make me loyal. It just bought me time until I was ready to leave. Stories number 5. My family thinks I am cruel because I refuse to replace something my kid lost just because he is upset, and now everyone is acting like I failed as a parent. I am a 41-year-old father living in Michigan, and I have 2 kids with my wife Hannah, who is 39. Our son Ethan is 11, and our daughter Brooke is 8. I love my kids deeply, and I am not the kind of parent who believes in being harsh or cold just to teach a lesson. At the same time, I believe actions and responsibility matter and that kids need to learn how to cope with disappointment without someone immediately fixing everything for them. This whole situation started over something that sounds small on the surface. Ethan lost his gaming handheld. It was not a cheap one. It was a birthday gift he saved up for with money from relatives and some chores. Hannah and I covered the rest as a gift. We made it clear at the time that this was his responsibility and that if he lost it, we would not be replacing it. He agreed enthusiastically and promised to be careful. For a while he was. He kept it in its case and only used it at home. Then as time went on, he started taking it everywhere. Friends' houses, the car, his backpack. I reminded him constantly to be careful. Hannah reminded him too. We were not hovering, but we were clear. About a month ago, he came home from school, pale and quiet. He waited until after dinner to tell us he could not find it. He said he thinks he left it on the bus or at the park after school. He was not sure. He cried hard, real sobbing. I felt awful for him. I hugged him and told him I knew it hurt. The next morning, Hannah asked me when we were going to replace it. I told her we were not. I reminded her of the agreement. She said he is just a kid and kids make mistakes. I said that is true and this is how they learn from them. She said punishing him when he already feels bad is unnecessary. I said it is not punishment, it is a consequence. We searched everywhere. We called the bus company. We checked the park. It was gone. Ethan cried off and on for days. That part was hard. I sat with him. I listened. I did not mock him or dismiss his feelings. I told him it was okay to be sad. I just did not buy a replacement. That is when the pressure started. Hannah told her sister Melissa, who immediately texted me saying I was being heartless. She said if I could afford it, I should replace it because all I was doing was teaching Ethan that his parents will not help him when he messes up. That hurt because it is not true. We help our kids constantly. We just do not erase every mistake. My mom also weighed in after Hannah vented to her. She said when I was a kid, she would have replaced it because seeing your child cry is unbearable. She said times are hard enough for kids now and that I was being stubborn for the sake of control. That comment stuck with me because I do not want to be that parent. Ethan has also started asking more directly. He tells me all his friends have one. He tells me he feels left out. He says he will be extra careful this time. I believe him. I also believe that replacing it immediately teaches him that promises and responsibility do not really matter. What makes this worse is that Hannah and I are not united on this. She thinks I am digging in too hard. I think she is undermining the lesson. She suggested we buy it and just tell Ethan he has to do extra chores. I said that still replaces the consequence with a workaround. She accused me of wanting to make him suffer to prove a point. That hurt deeply. I am not refusing to ever replace it. I told Ethan that if he wants another one, he can save for it again, over time, with chores and gifts. I even offered to match what he saves once he reaches a certain amount. To me, that feels fair. To Hannah, it feels cold. The tension in the house is noticeable. Ethan goes to Hannah when he wants comfort about it now. She hugs him and tells him she is sorry. I worry that this is turning into good parent, bad parent dynamic. I hate that. I also hate feeling like I am the villain for holding a boundary we all agree to. I keep asking myself where the line is between compassion and enabling. I am not ignoring his feelings. I am just not fixing the problem the way he wants. I want him to learn to be careful with his things and to understand that losing something valuable has real impact. I want him to learn resilience, not entitlement. At the same time, I see my kid hurting and it makes me question everything. Parenting is full of second guessing, and this is one of those moments where no option feels completely right. I do not think replacing the handheld is the right lesson. I also do not want my son to think I do not care. Right now, I am standing my ground. not out of pride, but out of principle. But when your own family looks at you like you are cruel, it is hard not to wonder if you are missing something important. Update: my family thinks I am cruel because I refuse to replace something my kid lost, just because he is upset, and now everyone is acting like I failed as a parent. I did not expect this situation to linger the way it has, but here we are a few weeks later, and it has continued to evolve in ways I did not fully anticipate. Some parts have been harder than I expected, and some parts have surprised me in a good way. The first few days after I wrote everything out were rough at home. Ethan was clearly still upset, and while he was not throwing tantrums, he was quieter and more withdrawn than usual. He would sit in the living room while Brooke played and just stare at the TV without really watching it. That hurt to see, and I will admit there were moments where I questioned myself and almost caved just to make that sadness go away. Hannah, on the other hand, became more openly frustrated with me. She told me she felt like I was choosing a lesson over our son's happiness. We had a long argument one night after the kids went to bed. Not yelling, but heavy and emotional. She said growing up her parents were very strict about mistakes, and she still remembers feeling ashamed rather than supported. She said she does not want that for Ethan. Hearing that helped me understand where she was coming from, even if I did not fully agree with her conclusion. I told her my fear was the opposite. That if we immediately replace things every time something goes wrong, Ethan will never truly internalize responsibility. I told her I was not trying to punish him or make him feel ashamed. I was trying to show him that mistakes have weight, but they do not define him. We both realized we were reacting to our own childhood experiences more than just the current situation. Things shifted slightly when Ethan came to me on his own one evening. He asked if we could talk. He told me he was still really sad about the handheld, but that he understood why I did not replace it right away. That sentence alone caught me off guard. He said he wished he had been more careful and that he keeps replaying where he might have lost it. He said it made him feel stupid. That word hit me hard. I immediately corrected that. I told him losing something does not make him stupid and that adults lose things too. I told him the point was not to make him feel bad forever, but to learn and move forward. I asked him how he felt about the idea of saving up for a new one. He said it would take a long time, and that felt unfair. I told him sometimes fairness and frustration exist together. The next day, something unexpected happened. Ethan asked if there were extra chores he could do to earn money. Not because Hannah suggested it, but because he wanted to. He cleaned out the garage with me. He helped our neighbor rake leaves for a few dollars. He even offered to sell some old toys he no longer uses. Watching him take initiative softened something in me. Hannah noticed it too. She told me later that seeing Ethan take responsibility on his own made her rethink her position slightly. She admitted that if we had replaced it immediately, he never would have had to sit with the consequence long enough to feel motivated to fix it himself. That was the first time she acknowledged that my approach might have some value. We still are not perfectly aligned. Hannah still comforts Ethan and tells him she wishes things were easier, but she has stopped openly contradicting me in front of him. We had a conversation about not turning this into a split parent situation, and she agreed. That alone reduced a lot of tension in the house. My mom and sister-in-law have mostly backed off after I told them firmly, but calmly, that Hannah and I are handling it. That boundary was uncomfortable, but necessary. I realized I do not owe everyone an explanation for my parenting decisions. Ethan has now saved a decent amount of money. Not enough for a full replacement yet, but enough that he feels proud of it. He showed me his envelope the other night like it was treasure. He told me it feels good earning it, even though he still misses the handheld. That moment reassured me more than anything else. Do I still feel guilty sometimes? Yes. Especially when I see him watching videos of games he cannot play. But I also see him growing in confidence and ownership in a way I do not think would have happened otherwise. This situation forced Hannah and me to talk more deeply about what kind of parent we want to be and what lessons actually matter to us. We are still working through that and probably always will be. Parenting is not a fixed rulebook. It is a constant negotiation between empathy and guidance. I do not think I am cruel. I think I am trying to raise a kid who can handle disappointment without falling apart and who understands that responsibility matters even when it is uncomfortable. I also think I need to keep checking myself to make sure firmness does not turn into rigidity. For now, we are moving forward one step at a time. Ethan is learning. Hannah and I are learning. And I am realizing that sometimes the hardest part of parenting is standing in the discomfort long enough for the lesson to actually land. Stories number 6. My friend expects me to cover for her after I clearly said no, and now I am being treated like the villain. I am a 26-year-old woman, and this situation has been eating at me for weeks because it has blown up in a way I never expected. This involves my friend Olivia, who is also 26. We have known each other since college, and for a long time I considered her one of my closest friends. We were not inseparable, but we were consistent. We checked in on each other, celebrated milestones, and supported each other through breakups and career stress. Olivia has always been more impulsive than me. She tends to jump first and deal with consequences later. I am the opposite. I think things through, sometimes too much. That difference never caused serious issues until now. A few months ago, Olivia got a new job at a mid-sized marketing firm. She was excited, but also anxious because she had exaggerated some of her experience during the interview process. Not outright lies, but stretching the truth. She admitted this to me over drinks one night and laughed it off, saying everyone does it. During that same conversation, she mentioned that she might need a favor from me down the line. When I asked what she meant, she said there was a chance her employer would call past contacts to verify experience, and she wanted to list me as a reference who could confirm she had worked on certain projects with me. Projects that never happened. I immediately told her no. I was very clear. I said I was not comfortable lying for her or putting my name on something that was not true. I told her I cared about her, but I was not risking my own integrity or professional reputation. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic, but she dropped it. Or so I thought. Fast forward a few weeks. I get a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. It was someone from Olivia's company asking to confirm details about her previous experience. My stomach dropped. She had listed me anyway. I did not call back right away. I texted Olivia and asked why someone from her job was calling me. She responded casually and said it was probably nothing, and asked me to just back her up because it would be quick. She said it was a small mistake and that I was overthinking it. I reminded her that I explicitly said no. She replied that she thought I would come around and that this was important for her future. She said friends help each other out. I took some time before responding to the voicemail. When I did call back, I told the truth without going into unnecessary detail. I said I knew Olivia personally, but could not verify the specific work experience they were asking about. I kept it professional and factual. The fallout was immediate. Olivia called me furious. She accused me of sabotaging her career and betraying her trust. She said I could have just said yes and protected her, and that now she might lose her job. She kept repeating that it was a small mistake and that I blew it up into something huge. Since then, our friend group has become divided. One mutual friend named Jenna said I did the right thing and that Olivia put me in an unfair position. Another friend, Marcus, said I should have covered for her because loyalty matters more than technical honesty. He said employers lie all the time and that I chose principle over friendship. What hurts the most is how Olivia has reframed the situation. She tells people I agreed to help and then backed out at the last second. That is not true. I was clear from the beginning. I feel like I am being punished for holding a boundary she never respected. I am not proud of what happened, but I do not regret telling the truth. At the same time, I hate that this may permanently end a friendship that lasted years. I keep replaying the moment where I could have just said yes and avoided all of this drama, but then I think about how resentful and anxious I would feel living with that lie. I never intended to hurt her. I intended to protect myself. Now I am questioning whether that makes me selfish or simply honest in a situation where honesty was inconvenient. Update: my friend expects me to cover for her after I clearly said no, and now I am being treated like the villain. It has been a few weeks since everything blew up, and the situation did not quietly resolve the way I hoped it might. Instead, it stretched out and exposed parts of the friendship that I think I was avoiding for a long time. A few days after the call with Olivia's employer, she texted me saying she had been called into a meeting with HR. She did not give details, but the tone was accusatory, like the outcome was already my fault. I did not respond right away because I honestly did not know what to say that would not escalate things further. Later that night, she sent a longer message saying she felt humiliated and betrayed. She said the company was now questioning other parts of her background, and that even if she did not get fired, her reputation there was damaged. She said all of this could have been avoided if I had just helped her for one phone call. I finally replied and told her I was sorry she was dealing with stress, but I reminded her again that I had clearly said no weeks before. I told her she made a choice to list me anyway, and that the consequences of that choice were not something I could carry for her. I tried to keep it calm and factual, but she did not take it that way. She responded by saying that my refusal proved I was never really on her side. She said real friends protect each other even when it is uncomfortable. That message hurt more than I expected because it made me realize how differently we define friendship. To her, loyalty meant compliance. To me, it meant honesty and respect for boundaries. Our mutual friends started reaching out more after that. Jenna checked in and told me Olivia had been venting a lot and painting me as someone who promised help and then panicked. Jenna said she corrected her when she could, but that Olivia was not interested in hearing another version of the story. Marcus, on the other hand, doubled down. He told me that even if I said no initially, I should have reassessed once the situation became real. He said I chose to protect myself at the expense of someone I care about. That conversation ended awkwardly, and we have not really spoken since. What complicated things further was that my own workplace got pulled into my anxiety spiral. I started worrying about whether my name being associated with this could somehow come back to me. I talked to my manager Daniel without naming Olivia and explained that someone had put me down as a reference without permission. He was very clear that I did the right thing by sticking to the truth, and that protecting professional boundaries matters. Hearing that helped ground me. About a week later, Olivia and I met in person at her request. She looked exhausted and angry, like she had been carrying this non-stop. She told me she had not been fired, but she had been put on a performance plan and warned that any further inconsistencies would result in termination. She blamed me for that outcome. I listened, but I also finally said what I had been holding back. I told her that what hurt the most was not her asking for help, but her ignoring my answer and putting me in a position where I had to choose between my integrity and her approval. I told her that calling it a small mistake minimized the risk she was willing to dump on me without my consent. She went quiet after that. Then she said she thought I was stronger than this, and that she assumed I would handle it. That sentence said more than anything else. It made me realize she saw my reliability as something she could use, not something she needed to respect. We ended the conversation without yelling, but without resolution. She said she needed space. I agreed. Since then, the silence has been loud. Some friendships in the group have shifted. Jenna and I are closer. Marcus has pulled away. A few others stay neutral and avoid the topic entirely. It feels uncomfortable, but also clarifying. I still feel sad about losing what I thought was a solid friendship. But I also feel oddly steady. I am not replaying the voicemail anymore. I am not wondering what I should have said differently. I know that if I had lied for her, I would be living with constant anxiety and resentment. This whole situation forced me to accept something hard. Setting a boundary does not guarantee people will respect it. Sometimes it just shows you who benefits from you not having one? Update: my friend expects me to cover for her after I clearly said no, and now I am being treated like the villain. This will be the final update because the situation has settled into something that is not dramatic anymore, just definitive. Olivia and I are no longer friends. About a month after our last conversation, she reached out one final time. The message was not an apology. It was more of a status update. She told me she decided to leave her job before they could fire her and that she was starting over somewhere else. She said the whole experience showed her who she can and cannot rely on. It was clear she was still framing me as the person who failed her. I read that message several times before replying. I realized that anything I said trying to defend myself would just keep the cycle going. So I responded calmly and briefly. I told her I was sorry things turned out the way they did and that I genuinely hoped her next job worked out. I did not argue. I did not explain. I did not reopen the boundaries she already crossed. She never replied. After that, the distance became permanent. She removed me from social media. I heard through Jenna that Olivia has been telling people she learned not to mix friendship with ambition and that she was burned by someone she trusted. I also heard that she still does not mention that I said no up front. At this point, I have stopped trying to correct the record everywhere. The people who matter know the truth. Marcus and I had one last conversation too. He told me he still thinks I handled things coldly, but he admitted that Olivia should never have listed me without consent. We did not fully agree, but we understood each other better. Our friendship is more distant now, but not hostile. What surprised me most was how much lighter I felt once I stopped hoping for Olivia to understand. I had been holding on to the idea that if I just explained myself better, she would see that I was not trying to hurt her. Letting go of that need brought peace I was not expecting. I also learned something uncomfortable about myself. I am reliable. I am calm in chaos. People trust me. Those are good traits, but they can turn into liabilities if I do not protect them. Olivia saw my steadiness as something she could lean on without asking. When I refused, it shattered the version of me she needed. I do not regret telling the truth. I do not regret protecting my professional reputation. And I do not regret losing a friendship that required me to abandon my values to maintain it. If anything, this situation taught me that integrity is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is just quietly saying no and accepting that not everyone will forgive you for it. Stories number 7. My roommate does not know I can hear everything, and I refuse to tell her. I am a 27-year-old woman living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Colorado, and until recently, I thought my living situation was pretty ideal. My roommate and I split rent evenly. We mostly keep to ourselves. We are friendly, but not best friends. We watch TV together sometimes and share groceries occasionally, but we live separate lives, and that usually works for me. My roommate is 26, and we met through a housing group online. From the start, she was outgoing and confident in a way I am not. She dates a lot. She has friends over often. I am quieter. I work from home. I like routines and early nights. None of that felt like a problem when we moved in together because we both respected each other's space. About 3 months ago, I started noticing something that made me uncomfortable. Our apartment has thin walls. I knew that going in. I can hear her talking on the phone. She can hear my TV if it is loud. What I did not expect was how clearly sound travels at night. The first time it happened, I froze. I was in my room reading, and suddenly I could hear my roommate moaning through the wall. It was unmistakable. Not background noise, not vague sounds. Clear enough that I knew exactly what was happening. I felt embarrassed even though I was alone. I put my headphones on and turned up music and waited for it to stop. I told myself it was a one-time thing and that everyone is entitled to their private life. It was not a one-time thing. It started happening regularly, sometimes with different people judging by the voices, sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning. Each time I handled it the same way. Headphones. Music. Pretending I could not hear it. I never mentioned it because I did not know how to without making things awkward or humiliating her. The situation escalated when she started dating someone more seriously. He began staying over multiple nights a week. The sounds became louder and more frequent. One night, I was on a work call late because of a deadline and had to mute myself because I was terrified my coworkers would hear something through my mic. That was when it stopped being just awkward and started affecting my life. I vented to my friend Claire about it, and she said I should just tell my roommate. She said I was being immature by avoiding the conversation. Another friend, Marcus, said it would be cruel to tell her because it would shame her for something natural, and that thin walls are just part of apartment living. I felt stuck between not wanting to embarrass her and not wanting to keep living like this. The turning point came when my roommate casually asked me one morning if the walls were thin because she could sometimes hear my alarm. I laughed awkwardly and said, yeah, they are pretty thin. She joked about it and said, oh well, apartment life. She did not seem embarrassed at all. That was my opening. I could have told her right then. I did not. I could not bring myself to say I can hear you moaning. The words felt too intimate and too exposing. I worried she would feel violated or judged. I worried it would change how she acted in her own room. I worried she would feel like she had to police herself in her own home. So I stayed quiet. Later that week, she complained about a neighbor making noise and said people should be more considerate. I almost laughed from the irony. Instead, I said nothing. At that point, I started questioning myself. Was I being passive-aggressive by staying silent? Was I enabling something that bothered me? Or was I actually being kind by not making her self-conscious? I did try to solve it without confrontation. I bought a white noise machine. I rearranged my furniture. I asked her boyfriend to text before staying over so I could plan calls better, which she agreed to without question. That helped a little, but not completely. The sounds still travel, and I still hear more than I want to. Eventually, she asked me directly if I ever hear her at night because she was worried about being too loud. My heart was pounding. This was the moment. I could tell the truth. I could say yes sometimes and ask her to be mindful. Instead, I said no, not really, and changed the subject. She seemed relieved, and that made me feel worse. Now I am sitting with this weird guilt. I am uncomfortable, but I also chose silence multiple times. Part of me thinks that if she does not know then, she can live freely without shame, and that is not a bad thing. Another part of me feels like I am betraying myself by not setting a boundary. I also worry that if she ever finds out later, she will feel foolish for not knowing and wonder why I never said anything. I am not angry at her. I do not think she is doing anything wrong on purpose. I just feel trapped in my own avoidance. I keep asking myself if refusing to tell her is actually protecting her or just protecting me from an awkward conversation. I do not know which one it is anymore. Update: my roommate does not know I can hear everything and I refuse to tell her. A lot has happened since I first wrote this, and I am surprised by how much weight this situation was actually carrying for me. After posting, I tried to just keep doing what I had been doing and ignore it, but the anxiety around it started leaking into other parts of my life. I was constantly on edge at night. I planned my calls and sleep around her schedule. I realized I was centering my comfort around not having an uncomfortable conversation, and that did not feel sustainable anymore. The first shift happened in a small way. Megan's boyfriend Tyler started staying over even more often, and one night they were loud enough that my white noise and headphones did nothing. I was exhausted and had an early meeting the next morning. I ended up sleeping on the couch with my laptop bag as a pillow, and that was the moment I knew I could not keep pretending this was fine. The next morning, Megan noticed I looked tired and asked if everything was okay. I almost brushed it off like always, but something in me just stopped cooperating. I told her I had slept on the couch because I could hear a lot through the walls and needed quiet. I did not say moaning. I did not say sex. I kept it general. My voice was shaking anyway. She went completely still. Then she looked embarrassed, but not angry. She said she had no idea it was that loud and apologized immediately. She asked why I never said anything before, and I told her honestly that I did not want to embarrass her or make her feel uncomfortable in her own home. She sighed and said she wished I had said something sooner because now she felt bad that I had been dealing with it alone. That conversation did not explode the way I feared. It was awkward, but not cruel. She admitted that she assumed if I never said anything, then it was not a problem. She said she would be more mindful and even suggested a few practical fixes like playing music on her side and adjusting the bed placement. She also said if it was ever too much, I could just text her and she would tone it down, no questions asked. What surprised me was how relieved I felt afterward. Not instantly, but slowly, like a background hum of tension turned off. That night was quieter, not silent, but manageable. More importantly, I slept in my own bed without dread. I did not realize how much energy I was spending avoiding a conversation until it was finally over. There was another layer to this I did not expect. Megan thanked me a few days later for finally being honest. She said she grew up in a house where nobody talked about boundaries and things just festered. She said she appreciated that I did not shame her and that I chose my words carefully. That made me realize that avoiding the truth is not the same as being kind. I also talked to Claire and Marcus again. Claire said she was proud of me for speaking up, and Marcus admitted he might have underestimated how much it was affecting me. Both conversations helped me see that there is a middle ground between confrontation and silence, and that I had been acting like those were the only two options. Things are not magically perfect now. There are still nights where I hear more than I would like. Apartment walls are still thin. But now I do not feel trapped by it. I feel like I have permission to exist comfortably in my own home again. Megan and I are actually getting along better because there is less unspoken tension between us. The biggest thing I learned is that protecting someone from embarrassment should not come at the cost of erasing yourself. I was so focused on not making Megan uncomfortable that I made myself miserable instead. That was not noble. It was avoidant. Naming that has been uncomfortable, but also freeing. Final update. My roommate does not know I can hear everything, and I refuse to tell her. I wanted to come back one last time, because enough time has passed that this no longer feels raw, and I finally understand what the real issue was for me. It was never just about noise or embarrassment. It was about learning how to take up space without feeling guilty for it. After that conversation, things stayed calmer in a consistent way. Not perfect silence, but reasonable. Megan followed through on what she said. She played music when Tyler was over. She was more mindful about late nights. I did not need to text her often, but knowing I could make a difference on its own. The anxiety that used to sit in my chest every evening slowly faded. What surprised me most was how our overall dynamic improved. We started talking more naturally again, not tiptoeing, not avoiding eye contact in the kitchen. It turns out, when resentment is not quietly building, you can actually enjoy someone's company. We started watching shows together again and laughing about small things the way we used to when we first moved in. There was one moment a few weeks later that really sealed it for me. Megan casually said, "Hey, if I ever get loud again, just tell me. No big deal." The fact that she said it so lightly showed me how much drama I had created in my head compared to reality. I had built this entire fear narrative around humiliating her or damaging our living situation, and none of that happened. I also did some reflecting on why this was so hard for me. I realized I have a long pattern of swallowing discomfort to keep the peace. At work, with friends, with family, this situation just happened to force that pattern into the open because it literally followed me into my bedroom. I could not escape it, and I could not rationalize it away anymore. I started paying attention to other moments where I default to silence. I practiced speaking up in low-stakes situations, returning the wrong order, saying no to plans when I was tired, asking for clarification instead of pretending I understood. It sounds small, but it has changed how I move through the world. I feel less invisible in my own life. Megan and Tyler eventually broke up, which was unrelated, but interesting timing. When she told me, she laughed and said, "Well, at least the walls will get a break." We both laughed, and it felt easy and normal. That was the moment I knew there was no lingering awkwardness left. Claire later admitted that she had been worried I would avoid the issue until I moved out and carried that habit into every shared space after. Marcus said he learned something too about how silence can be just as uncomfortable as confrontation when it drags on long enough. It feels strange that something so personal turned into a broader lesson, but I guess that is how these things go. I am still living in the same apartment. I am still roommates with Megan. I am not suddenly fearless or confrontational, but I am no longer proud of my ability to endure discomfort quietly. I am more interested in addressing things while they are still small and fixable. Stories number 8. My girlfriend told me to be a man when my mom died, and now she wants forgiveness. My name is Daniel, and I am 31 years old, living in Michigan, and for the last year and a half, I have been with my girlfriend Brooke, who is 28. When we met, she felt like the safest person in the world to me. She was funny, confident, and always talked about how important emotional honesty was in a relationship. I believed her, and I trusted her more than anyone outside my family. My mom, Susan, was my best friend. My dad died when I was a teenager, so it was always just me and her. She worked 2 jobs, never complained, and somehow still showed up to every important moment in my life. Even when I was grown, I still called her almost every day. She got sick fast. Cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral, I watched the strongest person I knew disappear piece by piece. When my mom died, I broke. I did not cry in a dramatic movie way. I just felt empty and heavy. Some days I could not even get out of bed. Brooke came to the funeral and held my hand. But after that, things changed. About a week later, I was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, and she asked me what was wrong. I told her I missed my mom and that everything felt pointless. She sighed loudly and said, "You can't just sit around like this forever." I told her I wasn't trying to. I just didn't know how to function yet. She looked annoyed and said, "Daniel, be a man. Console me. You're bringing the whole mood down." I thought I misheard her. I asked what she meant. She said she was stressed too, that my sadness was making her anxious, and that she needed me to be strong for her. I told her my mom just died and I needed support. She rolled her eyes and said, "Everyone loses parents eventually. You're not special." Something inside me cracked. I went to the bedroom and cried quietly so she wouldn't hear. After that, I stopped talking about my mom around her. Every time I looked like I might cry, she would say things like, "Don't start," or "I can't deal with this right now." So I swallowed it. I went to work, came home, cooked, cleaned, and pretended I was okay. 3 months later, I finally told her I couldn't do this anymore. I said I felt alone even when she was in the room. She looked shocked and said she didn't realize her words hurt me that badly. She said she thought tough love would help me move on. I told her, "You don't move on from losing your mom. You just learn how to live with the hole she leaves." I broke up with her that night. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just said I couldn't trust her with my pain anymore. 2 weeks after the breakup, she showed up at my door crying. She said she had talked to her friend Megan and her brother Tyler, and they told her what she said was cruel. She said she finally understood how badly she failed me. She begged me to give her another chance. She said she would go to therapy. She said she would do anything. Part of me wants to believe her. I miss the good parts of her. I miss laughing with her. I miss having someone next to me at night. But every time I think about opening up to her again, I hear her voice in my head saying, "Be a man," like my grief was something dirty and embarrassing. I don't know how you rebuild trust after someone teaches you that your pain is inconvenient. I don't know how to accept an apology for something that changed how I see love forever. I don't hate her, but I don't feel safe with her either. She keeps texting me, saying she's changed, saying she understands now. But understanding after the damage is done feels different. It feels late. And I don't know if love is supposed to feel like something you have to defend yourself from. I want to forgive her. Not for her, but so I can let go of this weight. But forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to invite them back into your life. And I'm scared that if I do, the next time I break, she'll remind me again that my pain is a burden. I loved her. But I loved my mom more. And anyone who couldn't respect that loss, even once, feels like someone I can never fully trust again. Update. My girlfriend told me to be a man when my mom died, and now she wants forgiveness. A lot changed after I wrote everything out and let it sit in my head for a few days. I stopped answering Brooke's texts for a while because every message made my chest feel tight. She kept saying she understood now, that she was different, that she hated the version of herself who said those things to me. I didn't know what to say back because none of that erased what already happened. One night I finally replied and told her if she really wanted a chance to talk, it had to be in person and it had to be honest. No begging, no dramatic promises, just the truth. She agreed right away. We met at a small diner we used to go to. Seeing her walk in made my stomach drop. Part of me still wanted to smile when I saw her, and that scared me. She looked nervous. Her hands were shaking when she picked up her water. She started by saying she was sorry again, but this time, it sounded different. She didn't rush. She didn't cry right away. She said she grew up in a house where emotions were treated like weaknesses. Her dad used to tell her brothers to man up if they cried, and her mom would just shut down when things got hard. She said when she saw me falling apart, it scared her, and she didn't know how to deal with it. So she tried to push me back into being strong instead of learning how to sit with my pain. I told her that explanation might make sense, but it didn't make it okay. I told her the moment she said everyone loses parents, eventually something inside me closed forever. I told her that was the moment I realized I could never be fully myself with her again. She cried then. She said she hated that she learned too late. She said losing me made her realize how cruel she had been. She said she started therapy and that her therapist told her she had a lot to unlearn about emotions and control. I believed she was trying. I really did. But believing someone is trying doesn't automatically make you feel safe with them. I told her the truth. I said even if she became the most supportive person in the world, I don't know if my heart can forget how alone I felt when I needed her most. I said I don't hate her, but I don't trust her with my grief. And grief is part of me now. She asked if there was anything she could do to fix it. That question hurt more than anything. Because some things don't get fixed. They just get carried. I told her I needed time, real time, not days or weeks. I told her I didn't want to promise anything. She nodded and said she would wait, but I could see how much that scared her. After that, I focused on myself more. I started seeing a grief counselor. I started talking about my mom out loud again, not just in my head. I visited her grave more often. I stopped pretending I was fine. A month passed. Then, another. Brooke still texted sometimes, not every day, just to say she hoped I was okay. I appreciated that she wasn't pushing, but every message still made me feel heavy. One afternoon, I realized something that scared me, but also gave me peace. When I imagined my future, I didn't see Brooke in it anymore. Not because I was angry, but because she felt like part of a chapter that ended the day my mom died. So I asked her to meet me again. She looked hopeful when she walked in, and that made this harder. I told her she mattered to me, but not in the way she wanted anymore. I told her I believed she was changing, but I couldn't be the person who tested whether those changes would last. I told her loving someone means wanting them to grow, even if that growth happens without you. She cried quietly and said she understood, even if it hurt. She thanked me for being honest instead of disappearing. She said she would always regret what she said to me, but she hoped one day she could forgive herself too. We hugged goodbye, and this time it didn't feel like unfinished business. It felt like closure. I still miss the version of her I thought I had, but I don't miss the version of me who felt ashamed for grieving. Losing my mom changed me. Losing Brooke just showed me how much I had already changed. I don't want a partner who needs me to hide my pain to make them comfortable. I want someone who can sit in the dark with me without trying to turn the lights on too fast. I don't know when I'll be ready to love again, but I know one thing for sure. Anyone who walks into my life from now on will have to respect the love I still carry for my mom, because that love didn't die with her. It just learned how to live inside me. Final update. My girlfriend told me to be a man when my mom died, and now she wants forgiveness. It has been a while since the last time I wrote anything about this, and I think enough time has passed that I can finally see everything more clearly. Life didn't magically become easy, but it became steadier. After Brooke and I said goodbye for real, I blocked her number. Not out of anger, but because I needed silence to heal. At first, it felt wrong, like I was being cruel. But my therapist helped me understand that protecting yourself is not the same as punishing someone else. Grief is still part of my daily life, but it doesn't crush me the way it used to. Some mornings I wake up and I feel okay. Some mornings I wake up missing my mom so badly it feels physical. But now I let myself feel it instead of running from it. I started doing things my mom loved. I cook her recipes. I go to the lake she used to take me to when I was a kid. I talk to her out loud sometimes when I'm alone in my car. It sounds strange, but it helps. It makes her feel close instead of gone. About 3 months ago, I met someone new. Her name is Rachel. We met through a friend at a small game night. I wasn't looking for anything serious, and I told her that right away. She said she wasn't either, but she liked talking to me. One night, a few weeks in, something reminded me of my mom and I got quiet. Rachel didn't push me to talk, but she stayed close. Later, she asked gently if I wanted to tell her about her. I did. I cried. And she didn't try to fix it. She just listened. That moment showed me how different love can feel. I'm not rushing into anything. Rachel knows my heart is still healing. She respects that. There's no pressure to be anything more than what we are right now. Sometimes I still think about Brooke. Not with anger, just with distance. I hope therapy helped her. I hope she learned how to love people without trying to control how they feel. I don't regret loving her, but I don't regret letting her go either. My relationship with grief is changing. It's not something I fight anymore. It's something I carry. Some days it's light, some days it's heavy, but it's mine. Losing my mom taught me what real love looks like. Losing Brooke taught me what love should never demand. I don't know exactly where life is taking me, but I know I'm not afraid of my own heart anymore. I don't hide my sadness. I don't apologize for missing my mom. I don't make myself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. I'm learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without breaking. And for the first time since my mom died, I can honestly say, I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. Stories number 9. My family found out I joined the military after I was already gone. I never planned to keep something this big from my family, but the truth is, I didn't know how to tell them without turning it into a war before I even left. I'm a 24-year-old man from Texas. I grew up in a loud, close-knit family where everyone knows everyone's business, whether you want them to or not. My parents, Robert and Elaine, are the kind of people who believe family should be consulted before any major life decision. My older sister, Melissa, still calls my mom before she books a vacation. My younger brother, Tyler, never made a move without running it by my dad first. I was the quiet one, the one who listened more than he spoke, the one who kept things to himself because it was easier than arguing. I had been thinking about joining the military since I was in high school. Not because I was trying to prove something or escape trouble, but because I needed direction. Structure. Purpose. I bounced between majors in college. I worked random jobs that paid the bills but left me feeling empty. I watched friends move forward while I stayed stuck. Every time I brought up the idea of enlisting, even casually, my parents shut it down immediately. My mom would panic. My dad would lecture. They talk about danger, trauma, wasted potential. They tell me I was too smart for that I could do anything else. What they really meant was they were afraid. I understand that now, but at the time it felt suffocating, like my future was something they owned. So I stopped bringing it up. I met with a recruiter quietly. His name was James. He didn't pressure me. He just answered questions, explained options, gave me time. For the first time in years, I felt like someone was talking to me instead of over me. I took the ASVAB. I scored well, better than I expected. That opened doors, technical roles, training opportunities, paths that actually aligned with my strengths. I went home that day and sat at the dinner table with my family and listened to my mom complain about her job and my dad talk about the neighbor's lawn. I wanted to tell them. I opened my mouth twice and closed it again. I knew what would happen. Panic, tears, anger, pressure. They wouldn't listen. They'd try to talk me out of it until I doubted myself again. So I made the decision alone. I signed the papers. I swore in at the recruiting office with strangers instead of family. I felt proud and terrified at the same time. I told myself I would tell them once everything was finalized, once there was nothing left to debate. I left a letter on the kitchen counter the morning I shipped out. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. I told them I joined the military. I told them why. I told them I loved them. I told them I didn't do this to hurt them. Then I turned off my phone and got on the bus. Basic training was brutal, but in a way that made sense to me. There were rules, expectations, consequences. I thrived in the structure. For the first time in my adult life, I felt capable and confident. The first letter I got from home hit me harder than any drill sergeant ever could. My mom wrote that she was heartbroken, that she felt betrayed, that I took away her chance to say goodbye properly. My dad's handwriting was stiff and formal. He said he was disappointed that I didn't trust them enough to tell them. Melissa wrote that everyone was worried sick, that extended family found out through Facebook because my cousin posted about how proud she was of me. Tyler wrote that mom cries every time my name comes up. I felt guilty. I still do. But I also felt something else. Relief. I didn't have to justify myself anymore. When I finally got phone privileges, my mom answered immediately. She was crying before I could even say hello. She asked how I could do this without telling her. She asked, what if something happened to me? She asked why she wasn't enough to make me stay. I told her this wasn't about leaving them. It was about finding myself. She said families don't keep secrets like this. I wanted to say families also don't get to control each other's lives, but I bit my tongue. Over time, the anger turned into concern. The concern turned into forced acceptance. They ask about my training now. They send care packages. They say they're proud of me, but there's an edge to it, like pride mixed with hurt. Melissa told me recently that mom still tells people she wishes I had talked to them first, that dad says he feels like he lost his son without warning. I don't know how to respond to that. I didn't disappear. I didn't cut contact. I made a choice for my own life. If I had told them beforehand, they would have tried to stop me. I know that with every fiber of my being. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to be talked out of something that finally felt right. I hate that they were hurt. I hate that my mom cried. I hate that my dad feels sidelined. But I don't regret joining. I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm proud of the discipline I've built. I'm proud that I made a decision based on what I needed instead of what made everyone else comfortable. I don't know if there was a perfect way to handle this. Maybe I should have told them and faced the fallout. Maybe leaving the letter was cowardly. All I know is that if I had waited for their approval, I would still be stuck exactly where I was. And I couldn't live like that anymore. Update. My family found out I joined the military after I was already gone. It's been several months since I wrote this, and a lot has changed. Not all of it in the ways I expected. I'm through basic training now and into my technical schooling. I won't get specific for obvious reasons, but I can say this is the first time in my life where I wake up knowing exactly what's expected of me and exactly where I'm headed. That alone has done more for my mental health than years of drifting ever did. My relationship with my family is still complicated. At first, communication was stiff and emotional. My mom called whenever she could, usually crying within the first few minutes. She kept asking if I was safe, if I was eating enough, if I regretted my decision yet. Every call felt like I was being quietly asked to apologize for existing outside the version of life she had planned for me. My dad barely spoke to me for a while. When he did, it was surface level. Weather, training schedules, no feelings, no opinions. It hurt more than I thought it would. The real shift happened after I came home on leave for the first time. Walking into my parents' house in uniform was surreal. My mom cried again, but this time, she hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. My dad stood back for a second, just staring, then finally pulled me into a hug that felt heavier than words. That weekend wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences and moments where I could tell they wanted to say something but didn't know how. Eventually, my dad asked me why I didn't trust them enough to tell them beforehand. For the first time, I didn't deflect. I told him the truth. I said I knew they loved me, but that every time I tried to talk about my future, the conversation turned into fear instead of listening. I told him I felt like my life choices were always treated like family decisions instead of personal ones. I said I didn't tell them because I needed to make one decision in my life without having to defend it. My mom cried quietly while I talked. My dad didn't interrupt. He told me he wished I had given them the chance to support me. I told him I wished they had given me the chance to choose without trying to stop me. That conversation didn't fix everything, but it cracked something open. Since then, things have slowly improved. My mom still worries, but she stopped framing everything as a mistake I'll eventually come back from. She asks questions now instead of making assumptions. She even told me recently that she's proud of how confident I sound. My dad has changed the most. He sends short texts checking in. He asks about my training. He doesn't lecture anymore. A few weeks ago, he told me he realized that protecting your kids doesn't mean deciding their lives for them. That meant more to me than he probably realizes. Melissa admitted she was angry at first because she felt like I shut everyone out. But she also said she sees now that I needed space to grow. Tyler told me he thinks what I did was brave and that he's thinking about his own future differently now. I still carry some guilt. I don't think that will ever fully go away. I hate that my family experienced fear and shock because of how I left. I hate that my mom lost sleep wondering if I was okay. But I also see now that if I had stayed silent and unhappy just to keep them comfortable, that resentment would have poisoned everything eventually. I didn't leave my family. I stepped into my own life. They're slowly learning how to meet me where I am instead of where they thought I should be. I'm learning how to stand firm without cutting them off. It's not perfect, but it's honest. Update: my family found out I joined the military after I was already gone. I think this will probably be the last time I write about this, because for the first time it feels like the story has reached a real ending instead of just another chapter. I've been in for over a year now. I finished my technical training and I'm at my permanent duty station. I have my own place, a routine, a sense of confidence I honestly didn't know I was capable of. The version of me who left that letter on the kitchen counter feels like a different person now. The biggest change, though, has been with my family. A few months ago, my dad came to visit me on his own. Not with my mom, not with my siblings, just him. That alone told me this wasn't going to be a casual trip. We spent the first day doing normal stuff. Grabbed food, walked around town, talked about work and weather, and nothing important. It felt familiar and distant at the same time. That night, he finally said what he came to say. He told me that when I left without telling them, it felt like a failure on his part as a father. That he kept asking himself what he did wrong that made his son feel like he had to disappear to live his life. He said his anger came from fear and from realizing he didn't know me as well as he thought he did. Then he said something I never expected to hear. He said he was wrong. He said loving your kid doesn't mean steering them away from every risk. It means trusting them to face risk with their own judgment. He admitted that if he had listened instead of panicking all those years ago, maybe I would have felt safe telling them. I didn't know what to say, so I just told him I never stopped loving them. I just needed to breathe. We hugged before he left, and it felt different than before, like two adults instead of a parent holding on to a child. My mom took longer. She still struggles with anxiety. She still worries every time she hears the word deployment. But a few weeks ago, she told me she finally understands that my life doesn't belong to her fear. She said she doesn't like that I joined, but she respects that I chose it. That's the closest she's ever come to saying she accepts it. I'll take that. What surprised me the most was how much my family dynamic shifted overall. They don't ask for every detail anymore. They don't try to manage my choices. They listen. They ask. They stop when I set boundaries. I think my leaving the way I did forced everyone to confront something uncomfortable. That love without autonomy isn't love. It's control dressed up as concern. If I could go back, would I tell them sooner? Maybe. Not because I think I was wrong, but because I know how much the shock hurt them. At the same time, I know that the only reason they're listening now is because I didn't back down. I don't regret joining, I don't regret choosing myself, and I don't regret protecting my decision until it was irreversible. I learned that sometimes the only way to be taken seriously is to act, not explain. And sometimes families don't grow until they're forced to let go a little. I didn't lose my family. I changed my place in it. And for the first time, it feels like I'm finally being seen for who I am, not who they wanted me to stay. Stories number 10. My mom didn't handle the wedding well, and I am still trying to process how something so happy turned into something so painful. I am a 32-year-old woman living in North Carolina, and I got married 3 months ago to my husband Andrew, who is 34. We had been together for 6 years before getting engaged, and overall, our relationship is solid, loving, and supportive. The part of my life that has always been complicated is my relationship with my mom, Patricia, who is 61. My dad passed away when I was 19. It was sudden and traumatic, and it changed my mom forever. She became more anxious, more controlling, and much more emotionally dependent on me. For years, I felt like I was half daughter, half emotional support system. I love her, and I know her behavior comes from grief, but it has also been exhausting. When Andrew and I got engaged, my mom cried, but not in a happy way. She said she was happy for me, but also kept saying she felt like she was losing me. I reassured her that getting married did not mean I was disappearing. I thought that would be enough. It was not. From the beginning, wedding planning was tense. My mom had opinions on everything. The venue, the dress, the guest, list the food. She wanted input on decisions Andrew and I had already made together. When I pushed back, she would get quiet and then later make comments about how my dad would have loved this or that. It felt manipulative, even if she did not fully intend it that way. The biggest issue was control. She wanted to be involved in every conversation. She wanted to come to every vendor meeting. When I told her some things were just for me and Andrew, she accused me of shutting her out. She cried more than once and told relatives she felt unwanted. I started dreading phone calls. Andrew was patient, but I could tell it was wearing on him. He grew up in a much calmer family dynamic, and he struggled to understand why my mom had so much influence over our decisions. I struggled to explain it without sounding like I was making excuses. Things came to a head about 2 weeks before the wedding. My mom called me and told me she invited 3 of her friends that Andrew and I had never met. When I told her we were at capacity, she said she already told them yes, and it would embarrass her to uninvite them. I stood my ground for once and said no. She hung up on me. For days, she did not speak to me. My Aunt Linda later told me my mom was devastated and felt disrespected. That word stuck with me because I felt disrespected for months, but somehow I was still the villain. The wedding day itself is where everything really fell apart emotionally for me. That morning, while I was getting ready, my mom kept making comments about how fast the day was going and how she wished my dad were there. I understood the grief, but it felt like she was pulling the focus away from the joy. When I asked her gently to stop, she snapped that I was being selfish. During the ceremony, she cried loudly. Not quiet tears, but sobbing. People turned around to look. I tried to ignore it and focus on Andrew, but I could feel my chest tightening. At the reception, she gave an unplanned speech. No one asked her to. She took the microphone and talked about how hard it was to let go of her baby and how lonely she would be now. She barely mentioned Andrew. The room was silent and awkward. I wanted the floor to swallow me. Andrew handled it with grace. He squeezed my hand and told me we would talk later. I smiled through the rest of the night, but inside I felt hollow. Friends later told me they felt uncomfortable and confused. That made me feel even worse. After the wedding, my mom acted like nothing went wrong. She posted pictures online with captions about her beautiful daughter and perfect day. When I tried to talk to her about how hurt I was, she told me I was overreacting and that weddings are emotional for mothers. She said I should be grateful she cared so much. That conversation broke something in me. I realized she was not going to acknowledge my feelings or take responsibility. She framed everything as love while ignoring the impact of her actions. Andrew was angry on my behalf in a quiet, controlled way. He told me he supports whatever boundaries I need to set. Now, 3 months later, I am still struggling. I love my mom. I also feel deeply hurt and disappointed. When I think about my wedding day, there's joy, but there's also grief for the experience I wish I had without tension or embarrassment. I feel guilty for feeling this way because my mom is a widow and I know she is afraid of being alone. At the same time, I am a married adult building my own life. I cannot be her emotional anchor forever. I am scared that if I do not address this now, it will show up again with future milestones. Holidays. Kids. Every big moment. I do not know how to balance compassion with boundaries. I do not want to cut my mom off. I also do not want to keep shrinking myself to manage her emotions. Right now, I am sitting with a lot of conflicting feelings and trying to figure out what a healthy relationship looks like going forward. Update: my mom didn't handle the wedding well, and I am still trying to process how something so happy turned into something so painful. A lot has shifted since I last wrote, and not all of it in clean or comforting ways. Some of it has been slow realizations, and some of it came from moments I did not plan for at all. I waited to write this because I needed distance from the initial hurt, and also because I wanted to see if my feelings would soften with time. Some of them have. Some of them have not. About a month after the wedding, Andrew and I went on a delayed honeymoon. It was the first real stretch of time where I was not fielding daily calls or texts from my mom. Being physically away gave me space I did not know I desperately needed. For the first few days, I felt guilty for enjoying myself without checking in constantly. Then, something surprising happened. I relaxed. I laughed more easily. I felt lighter. That was when it really hit me how much emotional weight I had been carrying for years without realizing it. While we were away, my mom called several times. I let most of them go to voicemail. The messages were not angry, but they were loaded. She said she missed me. She said she felt forgotten. She asked if everything was okay between us in a tone that implied it was my responsibility to fix whatever was wrong. I did not call back right away, and that was a first for me. When we got back, Andrew gently asked me what I wanted my relationship with my mom to look like now that I am married. That question felt overwhelming. because I had never allowed myself to think about what I wanted separate from managing her feelings. I realized I had always defined our relationship by her needs and my reactions, not by mutual respect or emotional safety. A week later, I went to see my mom alone. I was nervous and rehearsed what I wanted to say 100 times in my head. I told her calmly that I loved her, but that the wedding had been painful for me. I told her her speech hurt me and embarrassed Andrew. I told her that I needed her to hear me without turning it into how hard things were for her. That was the hardest part. She did not take it well at first. She cried and said she felt attacked. She said she did her best and that losing my dad changed her forever. She said she felt like the wedding was the final confirmation that she was alone. For a moment, I almost backed down like I always do. Then I didn't. I told her I understand her grief, but that it cannot excuse hurting me repeatedly. I told her I am not abandoning her by getting married, and that it is not my job to fill the emotional role my dad once did. Saying that out loud made my hands shake, but it also felt honest in a way I have avoided for years. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said something that surprised me. She said she did not realize how much pressure she had been putting on me. I do not know if that realization will last, but it was the first time she did not immediately deflect or minimize. She did not fully apologize, but she did say she wished the day had gone differently. That was more acknowledgement than I expected. Since then, our relationship has been cautious. We talk, but less often. When conversations start drifting into guilt or emotional dependency, I redirect or end the call. That was incredibly uncomfortable at first. I felt like a bad daughter. Over time, it has gotten slightly easier. Andrew has been supportive in a quiet, steady way. He never pushed me to cut contact, but he has helped me see that love does not require self-sacrifice to the point of harm. We also started couples counseling, not because our marriage was in trouble, but because we wanted tools to handle extended family boundaries together. That has helped me feel less alone in this. I still feel sadness when I think about my wedding day. I do not think that will ever fully go away. But I also feel proud of myself for finally naming what hurt instead of burying it. I am learning that compassion without boundaries is not kindness. It is self-erasure. My mom and I are not suddenly fixed. She still has moments where she slips into old patterns. I still have moments where I want to smooth everything over to avoid discomfort. But something fundamental has shifted. I am no longer willing to center her emotions at the expense of my own life. If there is one thing this experience taught me, it is that milestones can expose cracks that were always there. The wedding did not create these issues. It revealed them. I am choosing to see that as an opportunity rather than just a loss. I do not know exactly what our relationship will look like in 5 years. I just know that for the first time, I am allowing myself to build a marriage and an adulthood that are not shaped entirely around managing my mother's fears. That feels scary and sad and freeing all at once. Update. My mom didn't handle the wedding well, and I am still trying to process how something so happy turned into something so painful. This will probably be the last time I write about this, because things have settled into a shape that finally feels sustainable, even if it is not perfect or neat. A lot has happened quietly over the last several months, and I needed time to understand how I actually felt instead of reacting out of guilt or anger. After that first difficult conversation with my mom, there was a stretch of distance that felt strange but necessary. We talked maybe once every 2 weeks instead of several times a week. At first, those calls were stiff and awkward. She was overly polite, and I was guarded. It felt like we were both afraid of saying the wrong thing. As uncomfortable as that was, it was also the first time our relationship did not feel emotionally overwhelming. One turning point came around Thanksgiving. Andrew and I decided to host a small dinner at our place. I was anxious about inviting my mom, but I did not want avoidance to become the new pattern. I set expectations clearly ahead of time. I told her we were keeping things low-key. I told her there would be no speeches, no emotional surprises, and no comparisons to the past. She sounded hurt at first, but she agreed. The dinner itself was surprisingly calm. My mom brought food and helped set the table. She made a few nostalgic comments about my dad, but they were quiet and not performative. When she started to drift into sadness, she stopped herself. I noticed. That mattered more to me than any apology. Later that night, when Andrew was washing dishes, she pulled me aside and said she had been thinking a lot about what I told her months earlier. She said she realized she had been clinging to me out of fear rather than love. She admitted she had centered her own pain on my wedding day without meaning to, but that intention did not erase the impact. She apologized, not in a dramatic way, not with excuses, just an apology. I cried in a way I had not allowed myself to cry before. It felt like years of tension releasing all at once. I did not forgive everything in that moment, but I accepted the apology because it felt real. Since then, our relationship has slowly improved. It is different. There's more space, more pauses, fewer emotional dumps. She has started therapy, which I know was not an easy step for her. She still struggles with loneliness, but she is no longer placing that weight entirely on me. That shift has changed everything. I have also changed. I no longer rush to fill silence or fix her emotions. I let discomfort exist. I let her sit with her feelings without rescuing her. That has been one of the hardest but most freeing lessons of my adulthood. Andrew and I are doing well. This experience actually strengthened our marriage because we learned how to stand together instead of letting outside dynamics pull us apart. He told me recently how proud he is of the way I handled something that has haunted me for most of my life. Hearing that healed something I did not know was still raw. When I think about my wedding now, I still feel a pang of sadness for how parts of it unfolded. That may never completely go away, but it no longer defines the memory. I also remember the way Andrew looked at me when we said our vows, the laughter with friends, the quiet moments that were ours. I have learned that loving someone does not mean absorbing their pain until you disappear. It means caring while still protecting your own emotional boundaries. I wish I had learned that earlier, but I am grateful I learned it at all. My mom and I will probably always have a complicated relationship shaped by loss and history. But it no longer feels suffocating. It feels human. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I get to be a daughter and a wife without having to sacrifice one role to survive the other. Stories number 11. My girlfriend kicked me out of the shower, and now I am questioning everything. I am a 26-year-old guy, and I have been with my girlfriend Hannah for a little over a year. We live together in a small apartment in Ohio, and for the most part, our relationship has been calm and predictable. We both work full-time. I am in its support, and she works in marketing. We split bills evenly. We do not fight often, and when we do it is usually about small stuff like dishes or being late. That is why the situation threw me off so much. A few nights ago, we both got home late after long days. The apartment felt cramped and tense in that quiet, exhausted way. Hannah said she was going to take a shower. I waited on the couch, scrolling on my phone. After a few minutes, I realized I still needed to shower too because I had gone to the gym in the morning and felt gross. We have showered at the same time before. Not often, but enough that it did not feel strange to me. Sometimes it is just practical. Sometimes it is just talking about our days with the water running. I knocked on the bathroom door and asked if I could hop in quickly. She said, yeah, at first. When I opened the door and stepped in, everything changed almost immediately. She went quiet. Her body language shifted. She turned away and said, actually, can you get out? I was confused and laughed a little because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. She told me she wanted to shower alone. I asked what was wrong because the shift felt sudden. She raised her voice and said she did not need a reason and that I needed to respect her space. The tone shocked me more than the words. I stood there for a second trying to process it. Then she repeated herself more sharply and told me to leave now. So I stepped out. I grabbed my towel and left the bathroom. I sat on the bed, feeling embarrassed and honestly kind of rejected. I could hear the water still running and I felt stupid for assuming it was fine. When she came out later, I tried to talk about it calmly. I told her I felt hurt and confused. I said it felt like I had done something wrong without knowing what it was. That conversation did not go well. Hannah said I was overreacting and making it a bigger deal than it was. She said she had a long day and just wanted privacy. She said I should not take it personally. I told her the way she spoke to me was the part that bothered me. She said she would not apologize for setting a boundary. Since then, things have felt off. We are polite, but distant. I keep replaying the moment in my head. It was not just being asked to leave. It was how fast she went from okay to angry. It made me wonder if there is something else going on that I do not know about. Stress at work. Something I did earlier. Or maybe this is how she handles boundaries and I just have not seen it before. I talked to my friend Tyler about it. He said everyone is allowed to want privacy and that I should not assume it means anything deeper. He also said, though, that the delivery matters and that kicking your partner out harshly can hurt, even if the boundary itself is valid. Another friend, Marcus, told me I should drop it and not keep score over small moments. He said living together means sometimes you annoy each other and move on. What is bothering me is not just a shower. It is the feeling that my presence suddenly became unwelcome in a way that felt personal. I keep thinking about how easily she dismissed my feelings afterward. If I had snapped at her like that, I would have apologized once I calmed down. She did not. I am also questioning whether I am minimizing myself to keep the peace. I do not want to be the guy who ignores red flags because nothing dramatic happened. At the same time, I do not want to blow up a solid relationship over one bad night. I am stuck between feeling like I should stand up for how it made me feel and wondering if I am being too sensitive. We have not resolved it yet. The topic is sitting between us like a piece of furniture no one wants to move. I am trying to decide if this was just a bad moment or a glimpse into how conflict will be handled long term. Right now, I honestly do not know which it is. Update: my girlfriend kicked me out of the shower and now I am questioning everything. A few days after I posted, the tension got worse instead of better. We were coexisting but not really connecting. Small talk only, no joking, no touching. It felt like we were roommates who were being careful not to bump into each other emotionally. That made the shower incident feel bigger in my head. Because it never got resolved, it just got buried. I decided I could not sit with it anymore. One night after dinner, I told Hannah we needed to talk and that I was not trying to fight. I told her I just wanted to understand what happened and why it escalated so fast. I was calm. I was not accusing her. I explained again that I respected her right to privacy, but that the way she snapped at me and shut me down hurt. At first, she crossed her arms and said she already explained herself. Then after a long silence, she finally opened up in a way she had not before. She said she has been feeling overwhelmed in general and that her body does not always feel like her own lately. She said sometimes she feels overstimulated and panics when she does not expect someone to be in her space, even if that person is me. She admitted that when I came into the shower, it triggered that feeling and she reacted without thinking. That helped me understand the reaction, but it did not erase how it was handled afterward. I told her that what bothered me just as much was how she dismissed my feelings when I tried to talk about it. She got quiet again and then said something that stuck with me. She said she feels like whenever she sets a boundary, people expect her to soften it so others feel better. She said she is tired of apologizing for protecting her space. I told her I was not asking her to apologize for wanting space. I was asking her to acknowledge that I am allowed to feel hurt by how she communicated it. That was the part she struggled with. She said she did not see it as her responsibility to manage my emotions if she did nothing wrong. That sentence made something click for me, and not in a good way. I realized this was not really about the shower anymore. It was about how we see responsibility and empathy in a relationship. I believe you can be right about your boundary and still care about how it lands. She seemed to believe that once a boundary is set, the conversation is over. We went back and forth for a while, No yelling, but a lot of frustration. At one point she said she felt like I was trying to make her the bad guy. That hurt because that was not my intention. I told her I just wanted reassurance that my feelings matter too. She said they do, but she did not say it in a way that felt convincing. Since that conversation, things have been calmer, but also more distant in a different way. We are being polite again, but I feel more guarded. I catch myself hesitating before initiating affection or asking simple things, worried I might cross an invisible line. I do not like that feeling. I have been doing a lot of thinking on my own. I am starting to see that this relationship might have a pattern I ignored because it rarely showed up. Hannah is great when things are smooth. She is supportive, funny, and thoughtful. But when conflict happens, especially around boundaries, she becomes rigid and emotionally unavailable. I tend to be the one who tries to bridge the gap. I am not saying she is wrong for needing space. I am saying I am not sure I can thrive in a relationship where my hurt is treated like an inconvenience instead of something we work through together. We have not broken up. We have not made any big decisions yet. But something has shifted for me. I am paying closer attention now. I am listening not just to what she says, but to how she responds when I am vulnerable. Right now that response feels colder than I am comfortable with, and I am trying to figure out what that means for the future. Update. My girlfriend kicked me out of the shower, and now I am questioning everything. Another week passed, and the distance I mentioned before did not go away. If anything, it became more noticeable because I could feel myself pulling back too. I stopped initiating small touches. I stopped asking to do things together after work. It was not a punishment. It was self-protection. I realized I was waiting for some sign from Hannah that she understood my side, or at least cared enough to meet me halfway. That sign never came. One night we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, watching a show neither of us was really paying attention to. The silence felt heavy instead of comfortable. I finally asked her if she thought we were okay. She shrugged and said she thought things were fine now, and that the issue had already been talked to death. That answer hit me harder than I expected. I told her honestly that I did not feel fine. I said I felt like something important got brushed aside, and that it made me feel less safe opening up to her. She sighed and said she felt like I was still trying to turn her reaction into a character flaw. She said she already explained why she reacted the way she did, and she did not know what else I wanted from her. I told her what I wanted was simple. I wanted to hear something like, "I am sorry I snapped at you," or "I get why that hurt you." I said I was not asking her to change who she is or stop setting boundaries. I was asking for empathy. She was quiet for a long time, and then said she did not want to apologize for something she did not believe was wrong. That was the moment I realized we were talking past each other in a fundamental way. To her, the conversation was about being right. To me, it was about being connected. I tried one last time to explain that relationships are not about keeping score on who is technically justified. They are about repairing moments when someone gets hurt, even unintentionally. She said she understood that in theory, but that she could not promise to respond differently in the future. After that, neither of us had much else to say. We went to bed quietly. I did not sleep much. I kept thinking about how small the original incident was and how big it had become. Or maybe how big it actually always was, and I just had not seen it clearly until now. The next morning, I went to work feeling drained. I talked to my coworker Daniel during lunch, someone I trust and who has been married for years. He listened and said something that stuck with me. He said compatibility is not about never hurting each other. It is about how you handle it when you do. That sentence kept replaying in my head all day. When I got home that evening, Hannah was already there. We talked about normal things, groceries, work schedules, weekend plans. It felt oddly polite, like we were both avoiding the real conversation because we knew where it might lead. That night I realized I was imagining my life both with and without her, and the version without her did not feel as scary as it used to. I am not ready to say what will happen next. We are still together as of now. But I feel different inside. I feel less willing to ignore the quiet moments where my needs do not seem to have space. I care about her, but I am starting to accept that caring about someone does not automatically mean you are right for each other long term. This whole thing started with a shower, which still feels almost ridiculous to write out. But it uncovered something deeper about how we deal with conflict, accountability, and emotional safety. I do not know yet if this is something we can work through or if it is the beginning of the end. I just know I am paying attention now in a way I was not before.